So, what's trending? Bridging your Catholic faith with your everyday life. You're listening to Trending with Timmery on Relevant Radio and the Relevant Radio app.
We've been talking about taking our kids back from the digital world they're living in. Kelly has called from Maine, sharing how our conversation we just had with Melanie Hempy from ScreenStrong.com is spot on. She said she's been off internet and TV for 8 years, and she actually got her brain back. So we're talking about taking kids back, but also ourselves, finding that self-control and a good balance to how we use social media and technology as a tool, not as something that's taking our lives. You're listening to Trending with Timmery, and I want to talk about Rihanna's pregnancy. The singer Rihanna made a major announcement this week about her first baby to be expected, and I think it's an important conversation that we have because as we've been talking about technology and screens, well, the reality is that young people, as well as ourselves, are being influenced by influencers, Hollywood. It's not just singers such as Rihanna and others such as her boyfriend and baby daddy, ASAP Rocky, which, by the way, a side note, I had no idea who this guy was. I'm like, is that really his name, ASAP Rocky? But that's a stage name. I have to remind myself. He's a rapper and a record producer. But it brings me back to this whole idea. Why would we talk about Rihanna's pregnancy announcement? Well, all of the digital world's talking about it. It's everywhere on social media. It's everywhere from Vogue to CNN to Forbes. Everyone's talking about the fact that Rihanna is expecting a baby. On one side, this is so exciting because it's a celebration of life in the womb. It's a reminder for us to have that conversation that the only difference between Rihanna's baby and a baby who is aborted today is one is wanted and one is unwanted. And that is a justification of abortion in our culture. I also find it fascinating, and this is why we should talk about it, because our young people today are seeing Rihanna pregnant and they have something to say about it. They have thoughts, but we can help shape the conversation of what they think about everything from pregnancy to marriage. And it's interesting because I've seen a trend all over social media since the pregnancy announcement where people are asking, well, are Rihanna and ASAP Rocky married now? Did they secretly get married before making the announcement? Do they have plans to get married before the baby's born? When is the baby due? So many of the searches online have to do with speculation as to whether or not they'll get married or whether or not perhaps they secretly have. Now, nothing's led on in that respect. ASAP Rocky's still being called Rihanna's boyfriend, but we'll also give him the title of baby daddy now. But it provides the opportunity for us to talk about Rihanna's pregnancy as well. And to talk about what's the best circumstance for having a child. That yes, in all cases, we should always celebrate life. And we do understand mistakes do happen, but that child is always a gift. And that women, especially even the women and men in our own communities and families, will be supported in the midst of a crisis pregnancy. But what we also have the opportunity to talk about is that it's fascinating that we as a society still want to see our celebrities, the people and influencers that we follow, have that picture-perfect story. Okay, so here, Rihanna and ASAP Rocky are expecting their first child. Notice everyone's asking if they're married. Whether you are in a pro-marriage mindset or not, we want to see our idols and our influencers in that picture-perfect marriage. That they're having the wedding, they're having the baby after. We see this because it makes sense. A child has a natural born right to a mother and a father. And so these are things that we should and could talk about in light of the revelation of Rihanna being pregnant. That yes, we want to see babies within the context of marriage. Notice that even people who are struggling with the idea of getting married themselves or have wounds from their own families of origins, that even they want to see the fairy tale story ending of the marriage, the parents, and the kid. Especially from the perspective of Catholic Church teaching, one thing that's so important that we need to emphasize in a culture that's become rather confused about this is a child's right to his or her mother and father. Adoption is a great gift in the circumstance where a child cannot be raised by their parents, where the parent has chosen the best option, the best outcome for a child is to place that child for adoption. But what the church continues to hold so strongly to, whether it be the issue of IVF and surrogacy, which we'll talk about tomorrow, especially trending in the celebrity world, or it be the context of a baby being born outside of the context of marriage, that child has a right not only to know their mother and father, to be created in the loving act of their mother and father, but also to have a relationship with their mother and father within the context of marriage. This is best and healthiest for children, and it's so important that we see how important that context is for human flourishment. And so just a thought there on Rihanna's pregnancy. And apparently I said ASAP Rocky wrong. I've been told twice now. Thank you for the correction. It's ASAP Rocky, not ASAP Rocky. I apologize. I'm so not with it. In fact, there were 2 abbreviations over the last day or so that I was just not getting right. Someone was texting me, a teenager, and they said OC. I'm like, what does OC mean? And I'm sitting here trying to figure it out. They meant, of course. It wasn't a typo. They didn't mean okay or of or anything else. The other one I learned, I'm filling you in on the text lingo, is I think it was TM. So TM means tomorrow. That one's a little more common sense, but I just don't use abbreviations in text. Anyways, I'm dating myself. I've talked about having a MySpace. I don't get these references sometimes. And apparently, again, just to be clear, Rihanna's having a baby with the baby daddy, ASAP Rocky, not ASAP Rocky.